I think there are so many different things that are adversities to each of us, and they're all like individual for us. But I think that it's how we kind of deal with those and overcome them is what helps us, like helps determine like who we're going to become or who we're going to continue to be.
The Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, my guests and I provide the skills for thinking bigger, overcoming adversity, and making an impact with your work. What's going on? You're listening to episode 127 of the Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Scotty.D.Russell of Perspective Collective. I'm here to help you build a killer side hustle and elevate your brand outside your day job. And at the end of each episode, I plug a listener of the week. So stick around to figure out how you can get a shout out in a future episode, in the show notes, as well as in the newsletter. And if you don't know by now, life is full of ups and downs. And I believe you can't appreciate the highs without the lows. And back in my 3 life lessons learned from loving pizza series, I call this the crust, okay? And you got to learn to love the crust because the crust is what's shaping and molding you to the person you're supposed to become. And adversity is something we all deal with. Whether you admit it or not, you got to deal with it. And how we respond to adversity is what I feel is a judge of our true test of character. And today we have someone who responds to adversity with class, is just a straight up grade A professional, and they find a way to spin adversity into teaching and learning and valuable moments that they can then share with their audience. And I'm talking about the one and only Becca Clason. She's a tactile lettering and stop motion artist, blowing minds in collaboration with her husband Josh through their creative production studio called So Mighty. She's executed work for some of the biggest brands in the world. I'm talking about Starbucks, Target, Twitter, Nordstrom, American Express, you name it. She's probably worked for them. That's just to name a few. But her story leading up to how she landed these gigs is what I think you're going to find the most inspiring, and some tips that you can apply ASAP to start working towards that as well if that's what you're wanting to do with your creative career. And she's also the brains behind the Letter West Conference, which takes place in Salt Lake City in June in a couple weeks, June 5th through 8th. And if you can't make that, no worries. There's also the Letter West Retreat in Moab, Utah, and that takes place September 25th through 28th. She's bringing in some of the best lettering artists in the world to teach you how to elevate your game. So if you're really looking to elevate your lettering game and learn from the best in the world, do not sleep on this conference or the retreat. Jump on that. I'll give you more details later on that. We'll also talk about it in this episode. But mostly, Becca and I are going to dive deep into topics like saying yes and figuring out along the way, finding your why and seeking your purpose in life and with your creativity, and connecting life's dots from when you were a kid to when you're an adult and understanding where the overlap and the patterns are. And also, most importantly, how to handle criticism within a positive way. And we also get to talk about her tactile lettering process, how she lands clients, as well as we'll probably talk about pizza because we always seem to talk about that on this. So if you're feeling stuck and uninspired, this episode with Becca was made for you. You can find the show notes with a link down in the YouTube description. Otherwise, do me a favor, let me know what you think. Spread the good word just like you always do by taking a screenshot of video of the episode you're listening to or you working in the background, and make sure to tag me and Becca over on Instagram stories. I love giving a reshare. I love connecting with you, especially if you're showing your work in the background as you're listening. That's just me resharing it and giving you some extra eyes on your work, so take advantage of that. As always, keep an open mind and act on anything that resonates with you today. Let's go. PC family, today we have the incredibly talented Becca Clason on the show today. Welcome to the Perspective Podcast, Becca. It's nice to finally have a face-to-face internet conversation with you.
Yeah, so nice to meet you, Scotty, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, stoked. And we were just talking how I have a citywide power outage right now. I couldn't even get through the garage door, so I kind of had to find a way to into the house, using a hotspot right now to make this all work. The lighting isn't the best, but that's it. We make things happen.
Yeah, making it work.
All right. So for those who don't know, give us a brief Wikipedia page summary about yourself.
Okay, so I am a lettering artist and stop motion animator. I guess to go back a bit in my biography, I was just thinking the other day, I listened to a podcast by Kathy Heller. It was like what's it called? Don't Keep Your Day Job. She was interviewing an entrepreneur, and he mentioned something about writing out a biography of your life to help like remember things that you'd forgotten, to notice any trends and things that can help you like understand what really is important to you and what things that keep coming up. And so I did that recently, and it did help me like realize some things about myself that I hadn't noticed before. So I guess I'll just touch on a couple of those. So when I was 10, I started paying attention to my handwriting. So when I started passing notes between my girlfriends, and I like for the next like 5 years, I practiced my handwriting all the time. Like I purposefully changed the way I wrote certain letters, like changing single story A's to double story lowercase A's, adding embellishments to my letters, like, you know, slab serifs or cutesy.
You were nerding out from the beginning.
Yeah. So, but I didn't know it was anything, right? Like it was just me trying to have cute handwriting as like a queen. So, but something interesting to like realize about my past that I did. And I'm like, oh, like that ties into what I do now. And so that's interesting. I think we all want to think that we've been a certain way like our whole lives, right? We think back of like, oh mom, like when I was a kid, like did I do certain things that made you think like I'd end up in this sort of career, right? And we want to tie things together and think that like, oh, we're special from when we were little, you know. But it's interesting to kind of make some of those realizations. My mom actually, she started a wholesale scrapbooking company when I was in middle school. And so I worked with her like in the summers and sometimes after schools. Started out like from our garage, like the UPS guy would come every day and pick up orders, and I would be like picking and packing orders as like a 14-15-year-old. And then like as her company grew, I continued to like do some work with her. I went to some trade shows to help her out, and she actually came out with like a Fun Fonts CD-ROM that is like so old school, like CD-ROM, right? And that's how people used to use fonts. So I created a few of those fonts for her, and they weren't like, I didn't know anything about type design or typography even. It was just like my handwriting in a few different like cutesy styles. And so, but I think that is a fun story of like sometime in the past, and now I am where I am today, and it like is all like related somehow.
It lets you connect the dots.
Yeah. And it's fun to connect the dots from our past to where we are today.
Before we dive into more of your backstory, I'm big on giving action items here. So what was the action item that they gave you to write down your bio, and why? So we can tell listeners to go back, because it's big on self-awareness on this show too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that self-awareness is something that I have struggled with or not paid as much attention to as I probably should have. Like often I just go with the flow and let every day happen to me and have goals for that day, you know, but not necessarily like writing in my journal as much as I should, or being as aware of like, well, how did that make me feel, and what happened, and how can I learn from that? But as far as the writing in the bio thing, I think that everybody should try it and do it, and just go back to the beginning, write down anything that you can think of that relates to your professional life and your education and your learning and things that have led you to where you are today, or just like being honest with your story, like without hiding any of the things that were maybe failures or that you're not as proud of. And it's nice to be able to look back and think like, well, one of those things that was maybe hard that I dealt with like has helped lead me to where I am today. And it does help you connect those dots. And I don't know why we all want to connect dots for ourselves, but I think one reason is just to help make sense of our life and why understanding and why we're choosing to go down this path that we're going down, and where are we on that path. And I like thinking about, you know, like where we're at today. It's, you know, obviously we can't see the future. We don't know like where that will take us. And if we're in a really like easy or happy time, or whether we're in like a hard time and one of the low times, like it's hard to see like outside of that. But if we go like a year from now and look back, we can see like connect those dots, like, well, you know, I've come all this way from that time. And whereas like right now you're just in the middle of it, right? But from now you can look back 1 year and say like, well, where was I then? And it just helps show like how far you've come and how much you've learned. And that's like one of our purposes on earth, right? Is to just grow. Like we want to grow and improve and have purpose and meaning. And I think those things change as we go along. And if we've done something in the past, we're like thinking sometimes like, well, I've already accomplished that. What can I do more? Or like, what can this lead me to? And I think that's part of our growth and wanting to always like create and be creative people.
Man, we are getting deep. We're on the first question of a brief Wikipedia page story, and we're getting into it right now. This is awesome.
I know. Man,
this is like one of the best starts ever, for real, right into the meat.
I haven't even gone past when I was like 15.
We could have just done a whole 45 minutes on your bio. All right, so then where you are today, you know, tactile type, food lettering, stop motion, what is the road that led you to here? Like, what are those dots that have been connected in the past? Besides like what you were doing at 10 and 14, what kind of jobs did you have previously? You were always like full-time freelance and doing your own thing, your own business.
No, yeah, I've had a lot of different experiences. Like when I graduated college, I majored in the advertising creative track at Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. And I had done an internship in New York between my junior and senior years. I did it at an ad agency. And when I graduated, I went back to that same agency that hired me full time. And so I worked there full time for a year, and I was in like one of the most creative cities in the world, where like all around you, people are just like making new things and having ideas. And it's just like buzzing with, you know, creativity. And it's so inspiring living there, being there. And yet I was in this job that I felt stuck. I remember walking to work one morning, like it was in the West Village, and I was just thinking like, is this like the rest of my life? Like, I don't feel inspired at this job. Like I don't feel very creative. You know, I went through school and made all these like decisions and tried to get, you know, somewhere that I wanted to be. And now I'm here. And at that point, that was like the top of my goal, right? Like I hadn't, you know, gotten past that. I was just like, okay, after college, I get a full-time job in advertising and I moved to New York and it's awesome. And yet like, it didn't feel awesome. Like it just felt like I wanted to be a lot more creative than I was being. And so I decided to quit my job after a year, moved to China for the summer, studying Mandarin, went to the Olympics, and then came back to Utah, Salt Lake City, and got a graphic design job. I felt like advertising was cool and I thought it was interesting, but I really loved like the typography and the designing.
How old were you during this season and chapter?
Oh yeah, I was like 22 to 24.
Okay.
So I got a graphic design job in Salt Lake City and worked there for a few years, probably 4 years. And during that time was when I discovered lettering. And that was like when design blogs were like starting. And I think Jessica Hish's Daily Drop Cap started getting featured, and Friends of Type was born.
First wave. Yeah.
Yeah. The first wave. And that's like when I discovered it, like right as that was happening. And I realized, you know, like I've done some of this in the past and didn't realize that it was called anything. And I love it. And I want to be like this. Like I want to have this kind of job, but like my lettering's terrible. Like it takes a lot of practice, and I wanted to put in that practice, and I did. Like, so I was still working full-time graphic design job, but I was lettering a lot, like on the side. And in like 2011, I got married, and I also started doing like some freelance projects, like emailed out like friends, former colleagues, family, like, hey, here's my website. Like I want to do hand lettering. Yeah. So if you have any like jobs for me, let me know. So I did like a little bit of lettering for like friends and family. And like my lettering's changed a lot since then. Like obviously it takes like so much practice, and hopefully I continue to get better in that. But that was like the start of it for me.
That's
And,
awesome.
yeah. And so then we, my husband and I, we saved up our money. We quit our jobs like the next year in 2012, and we traveled around the country for like 5 months in an Airstream trailer. And my husband was a filmmaker at the time and photographer, and he was really into like vintage cars. So he was going around like doing like these short documentary films about cars and their owners and their stories and things like that. And so we were like collaborating on that. I was designing his titles for the videos and also doing some freelance stuff, and not any freelance stuff that could really like pay the bills. Like it was like small stuff, like logo designs for, small business owners and things like that. But it was experience, and it was good. So so we've been like collaborating since then, my husband and I. Actually, we like probably since we were dating, but like for our wedding, we designed our own wedding announcements, and he had a Kelsey 5x8 letterpress, and so we like letterpressed our own wedding announcements. And
you got a keeper. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's
couple.
Yeah, multi-talented. So we traveled around. I kept like a blog of our travels, and did some like custom, personal design work for that and lettering for that. We landed in LA, and actually, okay, let me just insert a little backup here. When we were still in Salt Lake before we left, I remember seeing like my creative outlet at that time was like blogging, and I was like really into Google Reader, following all the design blogs and all of that. And I came across Carrie Smith, who wrote the book like Wreck This Journal, and some of those other like Tactile things, and Stefan Sagmeister's The Happy Film, his like Kickstarter for that came out, and I was like obsessed with it. It used a lot of like food lettering and things in like a very tactile way, and he's always been very like tactile, which I loved and I like really resonated with. So at that time, I remember I did my first tactile lettering piece, like back when I was in Salt Lake. This was probably 2011 and maybe 2012. I did like Salt Lake City out of like some string, and it was very like very low quality in terms of like execution and photography and all of that. And the string didn't hold very well, and I didn't have any of the tips that I like now know. But that was my like first attempt. So looking back, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like that was so long ago that I did that, and I didn't continue it at that time. But it's nice to look back and see that. So fast forward back to after our Airstream trip, we landed in LA, stayed there for a couple of years. We were both working for the same company, Petrolicious, which is a automotive website and blog, and my husband was doing a lot of filming for them. He helped like launch the website and the company, and so I was kind of like working part-time as a designer for them, but also doing some like part-time freelance as well. So, and that's when I started to get like some bigger projects. Like I worked on something for Disney and like a first ad agency that I ever worked with there. But around that same time is when I did my first food lettering. And I like had a garden in my backyard. I picked a bunch of stuff. I was going to make some salsa because I'm pretty obsessed with chips and salsa and guacamole. And so I make my own salsa, make my own guacamole. And I had all these like peppers and tomatoes and leaves and whatever, brought them all inside and set them out on the table. And I was like, I'm going to make something with this before I make this salsa. So I made the word fresh and photographed it just with my phone, posted it on Instagram, and people really like loved and resonated with it. I think that.
And had you already had like an audience establishing those Instagram kind of that portfolio that landed you those other clients in a sense?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like big. I can't remember the size of my Instagram following at that time, but it could have been like, maybe 1,000 or 2, like something smaller. But I can't remember where it was, but this was like 2014 when this happened, but it was probably close to like 1,000, maybe a little over 1,000.
All right.
So it was small, but not like just starting. So I loved it. And at that time, like it really was something I was like, yeah, I want to keep doing this. back when I first did it in 2011, the tactile lettering, I like didn't keep pursuing it. But at this point I was like, yeah, I love this. Like anything I've seen that is like tactile typography in any form, like over the years, I've always really resonated with it. And at this point I was just like brave enough to actually like get away from the computer, get away from my like pen and pencil, and just like make with my hands. And it was pretty therapeutic for me. I started making tactile lettering out of flowers and kind of mixing like flower or like digital lettering with flower lettering, and making more and more like food things. We moved back to Salt Lake at this time, and then I kind of started this like personal project where I wanted to make something like every day. And most of those times it was tactile, not always, but I was just like trying to force myself to make and to grow my audience and to build a portfolio, because I knew that, you get hired for the things that are in your portfolio. You get hired for the things that you have made previously, or at least the types of things that you've made previously. So that was kind of like my business plan at that point. Like, how can I make things that other people can look at, or like potential clients can look at and see, I could see my brand here. I could see my product here. And I was very purposeful and intentional about that. And my design started getting like a little more and more like intricate and more planned out. For a while, I was just freehanding everything, not sketching beforehand, just making and photographing with my phone. And then I landed an agent. I did some outreach to some agents. I think I first heard about agents through Molly Jakes a year or two beforehand. I had no idea that they even existed. I didn't know what they did for you. Like she was the first one that like talked about it online, like where I saw it. And so I was like, oh, this is maybe something that I'd be interested in. So I first feel like I'm like talking a lot and I'm like a little out of breath. I'm going to drink a little bit of water.
Have some water. Yeah, I really want to know, when did the stop motion come into play? Because that's like your husband's domain that he brought into play for you.
Well, not really. He had never done stop motion before. But yeah, so I started with an agent. I got my first like official like client food lettering project. And that was because I made something as a personal project and like tagged their name in it. I really love Larabar. And so I was like, maybe if I like create this like fan art for Larabar, they'll like see it. And they did. And they hired me to create some more. And that was pretty awesome. And then one of my next projects was an agency reached out about a project for American Express. And that was my very first stop motion client project. And in the past, I've created a lot of like animated GIFs. I mentioned a blog in the past, and I did a lot of like GIF animations, like animating typography and that sort of thing. And it was just like a fun hobby that I did, but I hadn't done like, I'd done a few like little stop motion things, but this was like the first time that it was like a bigger production of one, and there was more on the table. So it was actually going to first be still images, and then like kind of last minute, the client was like, actually, can you make these as stop motion videos? And I was like, yes, I will
figure it out. Yes. Say yes and figure it out on the fly.
Exactly. So it was pretty like lo-fi stop motion, that first thing. So my husband hadn't done stop motion before, but he did have photography background. So he helped me like figure out like what I needed to do. Like he just helped me like set up the tripod, and then I like laid it all out and animated it all. So my setup is a lot different now, but at the time it was like I was crawling under a tripod, laying things out and like animated, trying not to bump the tripod because that would like ruin the whole project. Taking like pictures with like a remote, and the project like got better as the series of 3 like happened. Like the first one was like, that was like not great. And then the last one was like a lot better. So that was how I started in stop motion professionionally. And then, back to connecting the dots, like looking back at those like animated GIFs that I had made like over the past several years, that was like, oh, like I've been interested in animation for a long time, and this is just like the form that it's currently taking. And so sometimes when I get a little sick of animating things now, I'm like, like looking back at those like dots connecting, it's not like animation that I'm sick of. I just need to figure out a way that I can continue to grow it and evolve it in a way that helps me continue to grow and be interested in it.
Competing with yourself and pushing the industry forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So then I started getting more and more stop motion jobs, and there was a time period that that was like almost all of what I was exclusively doing was stop motion. So the setup is a lot more professional now, and we kind of have a system that kind of has streamlined like some of that like setup and technical process of it. So it's gotten a lot easier to actually create it in the past.
Beginnings for sure.
Yeah, totally. So how many years is that? I guess that first one was spring or like late winter to spring, like 2015. And now we're 4 years later. So
crushing it. So I know, yeah. So I know like me, it's not easy doing what we do. And I still hold down a day job and I do this all outside of it. And once you continue to put yourself out there and continue to show up, there's going to be people that vibe to your work, and there's going to be people out there that are pretty harsh with it. There's adversity with you deal with it. What are some of the adversities you've dealt with, within your business over, since 2015 or even before that, or currently today? It's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not. I think there are always adversities, and I think it's not so much like what those adversities are, whether it's like comparing yourself with others, or having slow times of work and wondering like, am I going to be able to keep my business open, keep getting projects, keep paying the bills, or is it reacting to like negative things that other people have said? I think there are so many different things that are adversities to each of us, and they're all like individual for us. But I think that it's how we kind of deal with those and overcome them is what helps us, like helps determine like who we're going to become or who we're going to continue to be. And so I've been listening to a lot of Seth Godin, like podcasts by him, and reading his book, This Is Marketing, which is
fabulous. I talk about that book all the time. Oh my gosh. That book is a game changer for anyone.
It is. Yeah. If I could give anyone a book that would help them, like no matter what industry they're in, that book I think is so true, like so helpful. And he talks a lot about, not necessarily in that book, but in the past, and we can talk more about that book if we get into that. But he mentions a lot about failure, and whatever that means to you, you can choose, how you deal with that. And it's not so much like just letting yourself just like wallow in it or not take any action, but it's what you learn from it. And that can really like propel you and cause change. We good?
Sorry, it's getting really, really bright in here all of a sudden, getting light outside.
No, that's fine. So I'm inspired by that because, there have been times that have been difficult for me, or like I let myself feel, self-pity, or wondering like, well, what are people thinking about me, or just like any of those things that they're a little bit harder to deal with, about imperfection or shame or any of that sort of thing. It's just how we choose to come out of that, and how we use that to fuel our fire, I guess, and choosing, like making the decision to learn from it and say like, this is a hard experience, but what can I do moving forward that will make me even better? Or what can I learn from this that will put me in a position where I don't have to deal with this anymore? Or what can I learn from this that will get me to where I ultimately want to be? And instead of instead of inaction, put yourself into action. And I've learned that, you know, there are certain emotions or feelings that we have that are, you know, obviously like bad or hard ones, but they're not constructive feelings, like worry or fear, anger, like doubt, like all of those things, like those aren't constructive. Like they make us sometimes just like
Paralyzed in a sense.
paralyzed. Yeah. But then there are other feelings that are, you know, constructive ones, and we can choose to see like abundance and gratitude and love and all of those things, and those can move us. Those are like action, constructive things that we can, I don't know, just try to focus on those instead of the ones that keep us from doing and the ones that keep us from improving.
So my coach back in football, like this is a quote that's ingrained in me, is true character is how you respond to adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a big theme I want to hit on this show too. Adversity is that bridge that leads you to where you're supposed to be. And again, you can connect the dots from there. You know, you don't have to go in specific detail about a recent adversity, but how have you taken a recent adversity and then responded to it to, you know, have a positive change? You know, what's a positive change you've recently made from some adversity?
Mm-hmm. I think that,
like I've had really rough reviews or people ripping me vocally on the internet saying that I'm ripping off someone else's podcast when it completely is not even close to being the same thing. And, you know,
mm-hmm.
I felt the feeling and I kind of wallowed in it and I wanted some pity until I'm just like, you know what, that's just one person's opinion and it can't hold me back. And now it's just like, again, I'm using that for fuel. How can I go above and beyond to show my true self within
Right.
My podcast and my work and really, really push and evolve myself forward? Yeah, I had a really, really negative review last year and it really crippled me for about a week. It really, really hurt. They said I was ripping off Adventures in Design podcast word for word. And I know Mark Bricky and reached out to him and we hashed it out and we're really, really cool. And he thought it was an even low blow, but it really, sorry, pardon for swearing. You don't have headphones on. I don't want anybody to hear it, but it fucked me up for a little bit. You know?
Yeah. And I've dealt with some of that similar type of situation, and it can be hard. It's tough when you let yourself care what other people think. And I'm not going to say that I don't care what other people think, because that wouldn't be truthful, but it's something that I wish I didn't put so much emphasis on. And I'm realizing now that that's something that I can work on. Like that is a mindset that I can change. It's not me who I am. Like a lot of these things are changeable. And I think that some of that, and with you and the podcast and with what I have dealt with in similar situations, I think it causes some like self-reflection. Like, is there any truth here? Like, are they like, is this really like truthful what's happening? And with you and that podcast, I'm sure you wondered, like, you know, like I don't believe that is the case, but you know, are there any instances that, you know, I have done anything like that? So I think that self-reflection is good. I think it's good to have, it's helpful and to see like, you know, well, is there anything I can change to really show my true colors, like really show who I am, and show my personality and show people that I really am this person who is trying to be kind and trying to be good and trying to create beautiful work and put it out there and trying to inspire others. And instead of putting so much weight on what other people say about you or what other people think about you, I think it's important to not engage with that sort of negativity or criticism, and to recognize the value that you have. And because we each have something unique that we can bring, and that's one of the beauties of it. Like we're all so different. And in this like small world of design and even lettering and even like niches within lettering, you know, I think it's easy to only see that instead of, you know, who we are as people and what unique things that we can bring, and wanting to expand beyond that. I think we have like labels put on so many things, but we're so much more than just like a tactile lettering artist. You're so much more than like a lettering artist and a podcaster, you know. There's so much more to each of us than like these labels. And how can we show more of who we are through our work and letting people see our true like spirit and our true colors. And I don't know if any of that is
that makes total sense. And what I always thought I wanted to be known as an artist. I wanted to be known for my work, and I want the glory of people thinking I'm a badass illustrative lettering artist. And now I'm realizing, like, I think there's a bigger picture of what we're all just a small cog of something way bigger than ourselves. I did an episode on this, like 121, and you are a tactile lettering artist. At the same time, you're creating something way bigger than yourself, which we'll talk about here shortly, but you're investing in community, you know, and you truly realize there's room at the table for everybody to sit up there, eat, and thrive at the same time. You're open with your knowledge, and you're creating this melting pot of a place where everybody can thrive and contribute to a greater cause while still, you know, investing in themselves as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is really important, is like figuring out your purpose, like doing something bigger than just like being an artist and making cool work, which is awesome. But I think that talks to like, what is your why? Like, why are you doing this? What is your purpose? Like, are you trying to help somebody, or are you just trying to like pay the bills and
get by?
I think that most of us in creative careers are wanting more than that. We want something that is like purposeful and meaningful. And if that helps pay the bills, then that's great too, you know.
Earlier, you mentioned you were at the Alt Summit, and they were really hitting on, you know, why. You know, what's your why? And a book that changed my life, if we're talking about books today, because shout out to our sponsor, Audible, but Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Like, that book absolutely changed my whole perspective on why I'm calling myself Perspective Collective and Perspective Podcast. But, you know, what is your why? What fuels you?
Right. And I think that's a hard question to answer, but I think it's something that we all need to take the time to figure out. And that comes back to like self-awareness that we were talking about at the beginning. Because if you're just doing things, if you know what you're doing and what you're creating and how you're creating it and what your process is, then sometimes you can get like caught up in just like your day-to-day, got to do this every day. I know like this is the formula here to make this stuff.
It's living in the micro when there's a bigger macro perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. And we forget like why we're doing certain things, or like what is the most meaningful like reason that you're doing this. And if that's to provide for your family and your kid and like create some savings for them to someday like get an education and all of that, then, you know, that's a good why. I think that we can try to peel back those layers of the why, try to ask ourselves why like at least 5 times. Because sometimes we're not getting to the truth of it. Like, well, why do I, and we can talk about like Letter West in a minute, but like, why did I create Letter West? Right. Well, because I'm still trying to figure out my, like, get down to the like really heart of the why as well. But there are a lot of different things I could answer. Like, well, I want to build a community and bring a community together. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, because I want that sort of thing to exist and I want to be able to participate in it as well. And so if I want to create this thing that I wish existed, right? Okay, well, why do I want to do that? And so you see, like, you keep asking yourself why until you get to really heart of it. And then on the hard days or on the times that are hard, then that keeps you going because you know your true purpose and your true why. Rather than getting caught up in like, well, this is like really hard work. I'm working a lot. Is this all worth it? it helps you remember why it's worth it.
For sure. And I think at the same time, you know, maybe you have a why here, you're not able to peel back that next layer of the onion, but that's where you stay engaged in that zone. You stay open to new things coming at you. You keep investing in audiobooks or podcasts, and somehow the answer ends up coming to you where you're able to, you know, clarify it a little bit better. You know, you put it into words that you weren't able to before. And that's how it is for me. I keep staying open. Like, what's the next layer? I don't know right now, but if I just keep pursuing this same path, you know, some kind of sign or whatever you believe in is going to present that to you, the universe, whatever religion, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of times you have to move forward, like not knowing like how things are going to come out in the future. And I feel like that this year is kind of like that for me. Like I am trying to grow Letter West or transition it a little bit, make it available for more people. But I also want to continue doing the type of client work I'm doing, but I also realize that I love like event installations. And so it's like, I want to start doing more of those. And I also have like a project thing that I'm working on with my husband and another partner that we're doing that.
The Mighty
So Mighty is our studio. Like that's the name of our studio, just for like our stop motion videos and the lettering work that we do. But this is like something like totally different, like an exhibit type of thing.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I don't know if that will all come together this year, but I like hope it will. And so it's just like a lot of like unknowns this year of like how things will all pan out. So it feels a little transitional to me, which is a little uncomfortable. And
5 years from now when you're connecting those dots.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard for us to let ourselves be uncomfortable. Right. But I think that a lot of those times that we are feeling uncomfortable, that means that we're growing. Right. It's like when you're like exercising, working out, and the next day you're super sore, you're uncomfortable, but that means you're growing and you're becoming stronger. I think that we have talked about like purpose and your why, and going back to, I think I mentioned Kathy Heller earlier. She has the podcast, Don't Keep Your Day Job. And she has mentioned on there a few times, and I really love it. Like the opposite of depression isn't happiness. It's a sense of purpose. And that's something that we all want. We all think we want to be happy. Like, well, if I make this, like I'll be happy. And happiness is fleeting, or it's like hard to catch, but purpose is something we can attain. Like if we have purpose in our job, then it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel so hard because we know the meaning, and we have that purpose of our true goals there. And that keeps us from feeling worry and fear and sadness and frustration, because we have a goal and we are trying to get there.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. I got a new podcast to add to the rotation now. I want to get into rapid fire because we gotta get close to wrapping up, but you don't have to rapid fire it too much. It's just the segment, but I want to talk real quick. What is Letter West?
Okay. So Letter West is, we create events for people who love lettering. So we've been doing
like a conference in a sense.
A conference, yeah. But in the past, we've been doing retreats for a smaller amount of people. The past 2 years. This year, we're doing a conference and a retreat. So the conference is going to be in June in Salt Lake City.
It's like a couple weeks from when this episode is going out. So
yeah.
What is it? June 5th is workshops, and 6th and 8th is the speaking part?
Yep. 6th through 8th is speaking. 6th and 7th is speaking, and then the 8th will be like a market and some other like fun, more organic events. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We have some amazing lettering artists coming with tons of knowledge and business skills and beautiful portfolios.
Let's plug a couple of them right now because they're friends of the podcast. So Stefan Coons, we got Eric Friedenson, Eric Marinovich, Lauren Hom. I've taken Ken Barber's workshops in the past. Like,
me too.
It's a beast of a lineup. If you're into lettering, probably tickets are sold out by now. If you're listening to this, I'm sorry, but we're putting it on your radar for at least the next year, or the retreat. That's in September. Yeah,
the retreat's in September in Moab, which if you've never been to Moab, it's like home of Arches National Park, Canyonlands National Park. We're going to be doing a little hike during the retreat to Delicate Arch, which is like one of the most famous landscapes in Utah. Like people come from all over the world to visit it. Mary Kate McDevitt, she'll also be at the conference too. Eric Marinovich and Sabina Karnik will be coming from India. She does amazing paper lettering. Like, yeah, it's insane. So the retreat is awesome because it's such a small group that you can really get to know each other really well. It's like a lot more of that intimacy. We're all staying in the same house, eating meals together, learning together. Like it's kind of a magical experience. It'll be a lot of fun. Both events are going to be awesome, but we aren't sure if we're going to be doing the retreats again in the future or if we'll just be continuing with the conference. So this might be the last retreat.
All right. So regardless, people need to stay on the radar and keep updated.
Yep.
No, that's really, really cool. I wish I could swing it this year, but hopefully next year. All right. It's on my radar. Next
year. It'll be there. We'll make it happen.
All right. All right. I want to get a couple listener questions real quick before we go to like the typical rapid fire. Maggie Interrios, one of my favorite guests on the show too. I want to know ranked in order the 5 worst materials to work with.
Whipped cream is pretty terrible because it like disintegrates and it like looks all fluffy at the beginning, but then it just like all falls down. So I did a recent project once for Facebook, I did it recently for Facebook, and it was supposed to use whipped cream and I used shaving cream instead. So whatever, it worked.
Cheat codes.
Yeah. What else? Let's see. Liquids are difficult. You have to be pretty quick with them. Honey is kind of tough to work with because it all like expands and oozes into each other. But I did one recently with honey that was a little more successful than my last attempt. Really small items. I can't think of like
sprinkles.
One. Sprinkles are tough because I'm like perfectionist in like the lettering. Like I can get like the lettering to look pretty much like as I want it, but then I'll still spend like hours, like a few more hours, like tweaking and getting the lines like to match up and line up and all that stuff, like angles to align and little like borders to tweak. And so I have like these really long, like, I think they're like medical tweezers. But I like with tweezers, with sprinkles, you have to like move each one, right? It can't just be, like line them up, like with patting your hands, like you have to get them in the right spot. So that's a time consuming one. Trying to think of another one. Things that change appearance over time, like baby carrots are tough because they start turning white if they've been like exposed to the air for too long. So sometimes you have to, I've tried like rubbing like Vaseline on them to like keep them like hydrated, which helps a little bit. I've learned a few like food styling tips like over the years, but I wouldn't call myself like a food stylist, but I do a lot of that type of thing too.
There's a lot of failing in your industry, it looks like.
Yeah. So, but like for non-food items, things like shoelaces or ribbon, those are difficult because they just like flop everywhere, right? So I've used like tape, like rolled up like pieces of tape underneath like ribbon to like hold them in place. And yeah, those are some tough ones, but I feel like most
learned a lot.
What?
I said I learned a lot from that already. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ryan Brewster asks how to make the jump from static illustrations to animation stop motion, or the biggest challenges in making the transition.
Biggest challenges. So when I first did it, I edited it all with Photoshop. And so I had like a million frames in Photoshop trying to create like a timeline, that sort of thing. But I had to edit each of the frames like individually. And that was just insane and like a huge file size. So I think that it's really important to learn After Effects because that makes like the editing process like much more easy. You don't have to edit your stuff in Photoshop unless you have like less than 10 frames. Yeah, I think that was like a learning curve, learning After Effects, but it has helped like a ton. And now we have an editor in our studio who does a lot of the video editing for us and helps also with any fabrication that we need. So that's super helpful as well. But I still edit some of my videos too.
Awesome. Yeah. Here's my favorite question always. If you were on death row, what would your last slice of pizza be?
Oh my gosh. I just love a pepperoni. I mean,
we're like best friends now. Yes. I love plain pepper. You can't mess it up.
No, I mean, living in New York for, not super long, but even a year, like I tried a lot of different pizza there. And one of my favorites is still like Patsy's Pizzeria on the Upper West Side. Like, I think it's, 74th Street or something around there. the pepperonis are like smaller and like a little thinner and crispy. It's just like the best thing I've ever had.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
If you could have lunch with one person dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh man. I mean, right now, probably Seth Godin, because I just like want to like all of his knowledge inside my brain.
I wish I was his son.
I
Love my
know.
dad, but man, a second dad. I'll take him.
Yeah. Or at least an uncle or something.
Uncle, anything. He could be my older brother. That's cool too.
Yeah.
Adopt me, Seth.
I know, really. So he, we were talking about his book earlier, and he's always thinking about his audience, right? Like you don't think about like wanting to sell your stuff or yourself. You're trying to have empathy for others and think about like what they really want. So now I'm like, as I read this, I'm thinking about Letter West. Like, so what do people really want? How can I come at it from their perspective rather than from like selling something to them?
How can you serve and provide the transformation for your minimal viable audience?
What's the wording? Like the
niche.
Is it minimal viable audience? Is that the term that he says?
I'm pretty sure that's what he said.
Something close to that.
Instead of like minimum viable product, it's your minimal viable audience. Niche down and just worry about serving this set of people and what's the transformation and service that you can provide them.
Right.
Help them get to where they want to be.
Right. We all want to. Sure, we wish we could market our product to everybody in the world, right? But we can't. Not everybody's going to like it. It's not going to work for everybody. They don't all want it. So maybe it's the least. Yeah, I can't remember the term. Something about least viable.
It's just focus on a small audience, niche down.
I'm getting stuck on like the terminology.
I know I'm probably wrong there, but you get what I'm talking about.
I know. Yeah, and everyone should read that book. Super helpful if you're trying to sell your work or a product or a service or anything like that. It'll help you.
Go for depth over width is basically what we're saying. All right. Number of the show. Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
All right. Okay. You like pepperoni pizza? That's fine then. I like dogs too, but
cats are cute. They like purr on you, and that's nice.
As long as you don't hate cats.
No, I don't hate them, but like dogs are just like best friends, right?
We'll get a dog once we have a house optimized for it, and I don't live such a crazy lifestyle. Okay. Right. How long
My
does that?
husband's allergic, so we'll never have a dog.
Oh, that sucks.
I know.
Sorry. How long does a piece of your tactile lettering or like a stop motion piece take for, say, like a bigger client, just a ballpark range, just so people know like the time that goes into it?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of like pre-production time, sketching and prepping materials or fabrication, any of that sort of stuff. But in terms of actual production, I usually give myself 2 to 3 days to lay out and shoot. And then there's editing and post-production after that.
So like a 40-hour total project?
Yeah, maybe. I think it totally depends on the scale. But yeah, I mean, like I could be laying stuff out for like 8 hours one day or like 10 hours and then doing more of it like the next day. Depends on how much lettering is within a project, because that's what takes the most layout time. So yeah, I mean, it just depends, but many hours. But I actually love it because it takes less time for me than doing like vector work. Mm-hmm. Like, I like could fall asleep vectorizing things in Illustrator, and I do, and I have. I like fallen asleep like trying to like do my pen tool stuff, and like I just can't.
Keyboard imprints on your forehead.
Right, but I also like will tweak things forever, right? It's like never perfect, and I just have learned to like embrace that like that's not me. Like I'm not Ade Hogue. Like I can't be like the vector king like he is. And I am just like more rough with my lettering, and it's just like a rougher style, and that's okay. And we can't
perfectly imperfect, the human touch.
Right. And that I think that tactile work lends itself to that and makes it more interesting. Whereas if I did like vector work of those same letter forms, it wouldn't be like half as interesting. So that's one reason I like tactile, because it makes people like smile, it surprises them, and also it just works for me.
Yeah.
And cool. I don't have to be like a vector master that way. And I don't want to be.
All right, last one. Where can people go to follow you online and support you?
So I'm on Instagram at Becca Clason, BECCA CLASON, and at So Mighty Studio, which is, we've transitioned to that like a few months ago. So like both So Mighty Studio and Becca Clason. I'm trying to post more of the stop motion work on So Mighty Studio, and kind of transition Becca Clason to a little bit more general creativity stuff and not all our studio work. And then also letter underscore West, which is where you can follow Letter West and all of the happenings there. I really want to start doing some like interviews and that sort of thing. So have it not all be events, but have more of that like community growth as well. So yeah, I think we'll get there. And then also online, BeccaClason.com, SoMighty.com, LetterWest.com.
I'm going to link it all up in the show notes for people who are trying to take notes right now.
Perfect.
Cool. Becca, thank you so much. This was awesome finally getting the chance to like meet you somewhat in person, getting to know more of your story. And this was actually really super inspiring. Thanks for opening up and just shedding all as much knowledge and value that you had today. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. PC family, there you have it. Becca Clason. She absolutely killed it. I know we went pretty deep in her storyline. Extremely inspiring. I'm hoping, Becca and I, we get a chance to link up sometime face-to-face soon. I regret that I'm not able to go to Letter West, but you can. So again, get your tickets ASAP. There might be a couple left as of recording. Otherwise, make sure to jump on the Letter West retreat. That's going to be taking place in September. I think you're going to really enjoy it, really elevate your craft. And you know what to do. Please, if you found value in what she said today, go blow her up right now on social media. Let her know what your biggest takeaway was. And then let her know if you're going to be going to Letter West as well. Becca, you are an incredible human. I am extremely thankful for your time. And I know I got a lot of value out of it. And I know our listeners did too today. So thank you so much. And I want to mention real quick, I've failed to do this in video, but the Side Hustlers War Chest is out now. And what this is it's your all-in-one toolkit for building your killer creative side hustle and elevating your brand outside your day job. If you're struggling to know where to start or stick with of transforming your side hobby into a side hustle with the goal of turning that into a side business, then this is for you. It's loaded with all types of things to help you find time and execute outside your day job. We got a Murals 101 guide in there. We also have drawing tools, drawing resources, book recommendations, tips for growing an online engaged audience, and as well as iPad accessories and Procreate resources with coupon promo codes so you don't have to pay full price with links to everything I use. It's dope. It's all in one. Everything you need. Link is down in the YouTube description, or just go to sidehustlerswarchest.com. Let me get your feedback. Let me get your ideas, because the goal is to constantly add to this, to upgrade it, elevate it, and go deeper to provide you more value. Again, this is all free for you. sidehustlerswarchest.com. And if you're seeking community, you need a place to freely share your work, to grow, to collaborate with people all over the world, then please, down in the YouTube description as well is a link to my private global Facebook community called The Perspective-Collective. We got people sharing their work, providing feedback. Each week we do a weekly roundup to throw your work out there, work in progresses. I'm also sharing resources, promo codes, giving you a chance to ask questions to your favorite guests that are on the show. So again, join the community, be a part of this movement at The Perspective-Collective in Facebook. And if you want to support the show and become Listener of the Week, all you got to do is subscribe, leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and that puts you in the running to be Listener of the Week, like this week's Listener of the Week. And this one comes from my homegirl, Leah Chong from Singapore. She states, Scotty's Perspective podcast is definitely one of my go-to podcasts to listen to. Even though it's classified mainly under design on iTunes, really it more accurately hits a diversity of topics from artistry, design, business of design, and beyond that, a healthy mindset, mental well-being, and the bigger picture of life itself. Holistic content, the best and top-notch creatives, and 100% transparency and authenticity. You can tell Scotty truly cares and gives more than he takes. Wholeheartedly, I can't recommend this enough, and I'm pretty sure it'll climb even further and help more creatives from different disciplines all around the world. Leah Chong, damn Leah, you went all out on that. Such a heartfelt message, and it's been awesome to have you in the group, see your growth, as well as taking on murals and really elevating your own craft. So
I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. And as I sign off, I got to give a huge thank you to my executive assistant, Paige Garland, my video specialist, Colton Bacher, and the homie Nick Jenkins of Bluka for all the dope theme music you hear on this show. And as you finish off your week strong, I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and keep creating. You got this.
Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.